Hello, welcome to another Wednesday haul. In today's batch, great comics all. With thunder and rain the morning began, but nevertheless to the comic book shop I ran. To find the greatest comic book plunder. What will be pick of the week, I wonder? I'm your host Beardo, resident comic book weirdo, and I'll stop these rhymes now, I mean it, because this is Minutia Minute. And what a haul have I got for you today? Comics. Last week, what did I have? Like 3 books? Not anymore. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books to go over with you guys, and there's a lot of amazing stuff. So let's get right into it. First off, I'm gonna just really quick touch on a book I got today that actually came out last week. I saw it, I was this close to getting it, and I didn't really know anything about it. I was like, well, I'll wait. Then at least one other person reviewed it. I know Sleepy Reader did, and he explained kind of what it was about, and I instantly had to go get it. So today I picked it up. It was Punk Rock Jesus #1. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on this book because it came out a week ago. I'm sure plenty of other people have reviewed it. All I'm going to say is, like, even with what Sleepy Reader told all of us, there were still surprises in this book to be had. I mean, just the premise makes you kind of go like, whoa. The whole idea of, you know, cloning Jesus with the Shroud of Turin and creating a reality show around that. Like, that alone makes your jaw drop and go, wow. But the complications around that are just staggering. And my jaw dropped probably 4 times after reading this book. And I had, you know, seen at least Sleepy Reader's review, maybe at least 1 or 2 others. I can't remember for sure who all reviewed it. And so I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting into, and my jaw was still dropping. Go get this book. It's amazing. It's only going to be 6 issues. It's too good to wait for the trade though, guys. Go check this out. It's really good. Alright. That's all I gotta say about last week. That easily would have been pick of the week last week had I picked it up. Okay, on with this week. First off, well, first of all, I've always, as usual, ordered them from least favorite to most favorite. And my least favorite book this week, I can't complain too much about because it was free. It was the Batman Earth 1 free preview. In some of the DC books this month, they're advertising this free book. They declared July 19th, Dark Knight Rises Day, and go get your free Batman comic. Don't go do that, because this book isn't even worth being free. It's just probably the first 15 pages or so of Batman Earth 1, a book that I was kind of curious about but wasn't even remotely motivated to go buy when it came out. I figured I'd hear what you guys had to say. I've had a few people message me and tell me about it, not necessarily good things. And then I also watched James Donnelly's special review of this, which was scathing, I think is the best word, and I was instantly turned off. So I had no intention of reading even a page of this, but since they had the free preview, I was like, well, it's Batman, I'll check it out. And this book makes me want to talk about Elseworlds a little bit, really, because, you know, I mean, this is basically an Elseworlds. I think James Donnelly said that, you know, just the whole idea of these Earth 1 books. It's really just an Elseworlds book, just they're not calling it Elseworlds anymore. And I really miss Elseworlds books because some of those were really good. Obviously, Marvel has sort of like the what-if stories, like what if Dr. Doom was a hero and stuff like that. But the thing that's great about Elseworlds is it takes it a little bit further. You know, it really steeps itself in history in some way and either, you know, puts our heroes in an unusual historical situation, or they'll take a normal historical situation and twist it on its head and then see how our heroes react to that, or something like that. And so, like, you always get different versions of our heroes, but there's a strong thematic reason for it based on their surroundings, or, you know, based on what the whole Elseworlds is about. My personal favorite Elseworlds, and I haven't read all of them, so don't quote me as saying this is the best Elseworlds, but it's my personal favorite, has to be Thrill Killer, because this does sort of exactly what I've just explained. It takes place in 1961, and it's basically, you know, it's Batgirl and Robin. There's no Batman in this, at least not in the first series. There was a later series that Batman appeared in. And they become Robin and Batgirl for very different reasons than you would expect, because it's 1961 and, you know, it's very steeped in that history. It's steeped in this transitionary culture from, you know, the Eisenhower 50s to the, you know, turn on, tune in, drop out kind of 60s mentality, and they're right at the cusp of this. And, you know, superheroism has more in common with Andy Warhol than it does with vengeance and justice and all that stuff. And so it's really steeped in that 60s culture, and it makes it a really, really interesting read. And that's the kind of Elseworlds I really love. Now, Batman Earth 1. Not technically an Elseworlds, but it sort of is. You have characters that are familiar, but completely twisted on their head. The difference between this and this is that Jeff Johns turns characters on their head for no reason at all. And I shouldn't judge this book too harshly, because I haven't read the whole thing. I've just read this free preview, but it's very clear just from the free preview that, you know, you have Alfred, who is someone who was at war with Thomas Wayne. And so they're both sort of veterans, and they have that sort of veteran relationship. And you sort of ask, well, why would you do that? Like, what thematic purpose does that have? And as far as I can tell from this, at least, is that it doesn't really have a thematic purpose particularly. It's just kind of there because it's Batman Earth 1. It should be different because it's Earth 1, right? Like, that's the whole reason, you know? And that's just not enough of a reason. The very beginning of this book, you see Batman chasing after a criminal on rooftops. He pulls out his grappling hook, shoots it, and it gets all tangled up, and he falls, and it's this big mishap. And instantly, you're just kind of like, because, you know, having Batman's grappling hook not work and having him fall on his ass is basically like the equivalent of seeing the Man of Steel with big giant sweat stains under his armpits. You know, I mean, sure, I'm sure they would be there in real life, but you don't want to see that. It's not what it's about, you know what I mean? And so seeing that in this book was just kind of an instant turn off. And then as we started to see what the characters were going to be like, I instantly thought, not great. Anyway, if you want to pick it up, it's free. If you don't, don't. All right, on to the main event. The actual books from this week. I've got 6 books. 6 books. I guess I had 9 books. Did I say I had 7? I don't know, whatever. Okay, continuing on. Unfortunately, Batman Earth 1 wasn't the only disappointment this week. There were 2 others, and we're going to get those out of the way right off the bat. First up was The Spider, issue 3, and I really have been enjoying this series. The story's actually continuing along nicely. You've got sort of this whole zombie epidemic kind of thing building up with this zombie gas and all that stuff, and that takes a turn for the worse in this book, which was entertaining enough. But this book was absolutely ruined by the art. So the art. One of the things about this book is it's got kind of that sort of photoshopped kind of quality, where it's like a photo that's been kind of remade in an illustrated format kind of a thing, you know, that kind of deal. I don't know how to explain that, but that's kind of what the book is set up to look like. And in the first 2 issues, it worked really well. The problem is that with this issue, there is way too much computer distortions and like Photoshop elements built into the book. So there's a lot of sort of blurred out moments. This actually isn't necessarily a bad one, but you got the spider, you know, landing on this truck or whatever, and like the background's all blurry. And you know, it looks pretty clearly photoshopped, but it kind of has an effective quality to it that, you know, you buy into. But as you get further and further into the book, like literally every time you turn the page, there's some kind of effect that's been layered on, and most times it's really to the book's detriment. You've got him blowing smoke in this just really ugly way, and you've got that computer screen sort of photoshopped in there. Let's see. There is also a lot of shots, let's see if I can find some of them here, where there's a lot of blurring effects going on. So he's like kind of been drugged, and so her mask is all like you know, you can see where it's kind of blurring back and forth, and that happens throughout a lot of the book, and it just looks really, really tacky, and it took me right out of the moment. Unfortunately, here's another sort of blur shot that's just sort of blurry for blurry's sake, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. And you know, it's sad because normally I've actually really been enjoying the art on this book. It strikes a nice balance, even though it is sort of that computery style. I don't mind that because, you know, half of art is sort of picking what you're gonna see. You know, it's not so much that you can draw it as much as you can choose the elements that are important. And even if you're photoshopping something, that aspect of the art still comes through. Unfortunately, they did not choose the right elements with the Spider #3. So this book, overall, I wouldn't recommend this week, and that's really disappointing. Hopefully next month they pick it up. Alright, a similar problem happened with Batwoman this week too. And you know, it's so hard to criticize the art because you always have to asterisk it by saying like, well, it's not J.H. Williams III, blah blah blah. But it doesn't make this art excusable. You know, and this book, the art in this book itself wasn't terrible, but you had a lot of computery things kind of messing with the art's chi, in my opinion. So if you think back to like Amy Reeder, this story arc is called To Drown the World, and the very first issue of her arc, I think it was the first or second, like they had To Drown the World kind of, like the title was kind of part of the whole big splash page, and it was clearly like drawn into the artwork. In this issue, and I'm sure this is in the other Trevor McCarthy issue as well, it's been computer, you know, put on there with a computer, but in this, for some reason in this issue, it just totally drew attention to itself. And maybe it's because I read the Spider first, and so I had like computery stuff in my mind. But so you got this To Drown the World written in this sort of, you know, the black ink with the white kind of shadow in the background. It just looks really tacky to me. They also built in a lot of like computerized textures. You can actually see on her mask right there, there's a lot of sort of computer textures that have been added to sort of add some detail to her suit. I don't know if that comes from the fact that they were kind of rushing through the art and they felt like they needed a computer as a crutch, but I definitely felt like there was way too much computery crap going on in this book. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being too sensitive to it today, but like all the time, whenever you saw, let's see if I can find a page of it, whenever you saw any kind of like bam, pow, whap, you know, those kinds of things, they're all just kind of tacked on. Like here's a great example, like this rumble, and it's like, you know, it's supposed to look like it's drawn, but it's clearly done on the computer. And I mean, they've been doing this forever, but for some reason I felt like it was done in a really tacky way this month that just really drew attention to itself. So anyway, that really bugged me about this book. However, this was better than the Spider because, first of all, we're finally at the end of this story arc, which I'm so glad for. I'm excited to see the next issue at this point. And it does kind of wrap things up in a way that leads you into the next arc, and it's going to be kind of exciting. I will say that, you know, recycling these same villains over and over is going to become a little bit tiring if they don't bring it to new levels. So I'm really curious to see where J.H. Williams III is going to go on this now that he's going to be back on the book. I'm kind of assuming he's saving some of the best stuff for when he's on art, but we'll see. It might be great, it might be kind of lackluster, and we'll kind of judge it when, you know, the time comes. All in all, you know, the story wrapped up. We still had time jumps in this book, and it's like everything has come to the modern, you know, come to now. And then partway into the book, we start getting into sections of 15 minutes from now and the next day. And like, you know, it's like no matter what, you're never in now and nothing's happening now. It's all happening in the past, or it's happening just after right now. And it's just kind of like, why do you need to do it that way? So for example, the 15, like the part where it's, you know, 15 minutes from now, it sort of serves as foreshadowing because, you know, someone appears and is like, Batwoman effed up. And so then you go back to the actual scene, and it's clearly intended to build tension. But this is the final part of the story arc. If you haven't got the reader hooked by now with the tension, then you clearly did something wrong earlier on. And again, I just felt like this story arc was using all these time jumps as a crutch and wasn't really thinking them through properly. Just my opinion, guys. Don't know what to tell you. Like I said, I'm excited for J.H. Williams to be back on this full throttle. I think that this next story arc hopefully is going to be a lot better. If it continues to be sort of the same thing recycled, there's a chance Batwoman could get dropped, guys. We'll see. Anyway, Batwoman, disappointing, but not as disappointing as Spider this month. So there you go. Alright, on to the better books this month. I've got 4 more books for you guys, and 3 of them were contenders for Pick of the Week. So there were some fantastic reads, don't get me wrong. I actually had a blast reading my books today. First up, we have Wonder Woman, issue number 11, and this issue felt similar to sort of like Batman issue 9 to me, in the sense that, a lot of the big things have been revealed at this point. And of course that ended up not being true with Batman. There was another big reveal in issue 10, but like it felt like you were kind of wrapping things up and getting onto the big last, the last act. And I'm guessing this story arc is going to finish up with the next issue. And so there's a lot of everyone sort of moving, all the pawns moving into place and setting up for the big finale. Now, there's a moment in this book that kind of reminded me of 24. I don't know if you guys watched 24 back in the day, but in the very first season, I can't think of Jack Bauer's daughter's name now. Kid Bauer, we'll just call her Kid Bauer, is kidnapped at the beginning of the series, and then he recovers her like halfway through, and then she just sort of keeps getting kidnapped over and over again throughout the series. That kind of happens with this book, and what's-her-face, who's pregnant, who's pregnant with the daughter of Zeus, or the child of Zeus, we don't know that it's a daughter, I guess. That kind of happens to her in this, because, they just got her out of hell, and now she's been captured and taken to heaven. However, it's done in a nice way, because you do have that dichotomy between the underworld and Olympus, and then, Hades and Hera. And this, as I said, it's all building up to the big climax. There's actually not a whole lot specific to say about this issue. If you've been enjoying Wonder Woman, you're going to like this. If you haven't read Wonder Woman before, this is probably not the place to pick up. I'd wait for the 0 issue. I've talked with some people, specifically Agent 42Q, about like classic Wonder Woman fans don't like this, and this book isn't written for Wonder Woman fans. I don't know, because I am not a lover or a hater of Wonder Woman. I know that I like this, and I mean, I'm familiar enough with the Wonder Woman story. I feel like the Wonder Woman fans are being a little too hard on this book. Obviously, they really, effed up her origin with this new series, but they do it in a way that pays tribute to the classic origin. It doesn't just like sort of throw it in your face. They treat it with more of a sort of like Mr. Freeze in Batman Annual #1, where it's all about his wife Nora Freeze, and it still is about that, even though his origin is actually a bit different than what you remember it being. They turn it on its head. I feel like they did the same thing with Wonder Woman. It's not that they ignore the original origin, they just bring it to a different place. Anyway, I love this book. Month to month, it's really good. Issue 10 was the only one that I was kind of like meh on. I'm really excited to see the conclusion of the story arc, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen next. So anyway, go pick it up. Alright, on to the 3 potential picks of the week. There can be only one. I had to put these in an order, so you're going to see one first that you probably will think should be higher, but I will defend my choices. So comment below if you disagree with me, and I'll defend it. Anyway, second runner-up is Saga. Now, Saga was amazing this month, so the fact that it's, takes 3rd place says something about these other books, and this issue was no exception. One of the things I love about Saga right now is that opening page. I mean, you open the page, and there's something so crazy and so absurd, or so sort of counterintuitive, that you instantly close the book. You just have to think about it, laugh about it, and just enjoy it. And then you open the book up again and actually start reading it. That's exactly what happened with issue number 4 when, you know, the legs, we'll say, were on the big front page. In this one, we get another moment kind of like that. It's a familiar character, so it's not quite as out of the blue, but the situation that they're in is equally like, oh boy. And then you close it and you think about it and you're like, okay, I'm ready to read now. And it's just a thrill ride from beginning to end. We get a lot more action in this particular issue. Things are definitely, again, kind of like Wonder Woman, things are definitely building to something here, and we're getting a lot of convergence of characters in this. People are starting to trickle together into some massive blowout that's coming probably in the next couple of issues. And I mean, you know, people are just starting to meet now here in issue 5, and I'm not going to spoil who it is, but there's already a casualty. So this book is going to be a must pick up for the immediate future, and I'm sure for many, many issues after that. Love Saga, who doesn't? Go pick it up. Alright, penultimate issue this week. And this is one you guys will probably challenge me on for having placed so high, but this book is really that good. And it's Star Wars Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison. Who would have thought that this would be so high on my list? I mean, it's just, you know, it's a movie tie-in type of book. You know, it's Star Wars. Like, there's a bajillion Star Wars books. But this book never ceases to impress me, and it's just phenomenal. So, it's not necessarily better than Saga number 5, but it's definitely equally on par. So, we pick up where we left off, which is Darth Vader and his cadet that he's allied himself with are in the Jedi Temple, and they are starting up a hologram that is centered around Anakin Skywalker having an argument with the Jedi Council about something. And it's a dark, dirty secret of the Jedi Council. And one of the things I love about this book is you really get a sense that, like, you know, the war that, you know, the Civil War that engulfed the Republic, blah, 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 back in the day, that we see in episodes, you know, 2 and 3, it's not just the Empire that sort of supersedes its own authority and, you know, takes on that sort of imperialistic viewpoint. The Jedi were doing that too, and you kind of wonder if, you know, if the Emperor wasn't really, you know, this mastermind that was going to create the Empire and all this stuff, you kind of wonder if the Jedi would have gone a similar direction, because, you know, in these type of extenuating times that are, you know, really stressful and really hard on, really hard on a, you know, civilization of people, you know, no matter what, they tend to turn to these types of solutions that are always very imperialistic, very immoral, and very un-Republic-like. So it's really nice to see the gray area for when you pick allegiances. And that's what this book is all about, is picking an allegiance and living with the gray area of, you know, neither side is right, neither side is you know, untouchable. Everyone's sort of doing the wrong thing, and you just kind of have to pick which side you're on and live with the consequences of that choice. This book is just absolutely phenomenal. It's called Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison, but it's really about this cadet, and Darth Vader just figures majorly into it. And if you pick this book up for no other reason, pick it up for the art, because the art in this book is just plain awesome. Let me see, let me find a good, here we go. What is not awesome about that? I mean, it's just beautiful artwork. And when you see the covers, like, this is actually a pretty good cover, but most of the covers are kind of lackluster, but it's not the interior art. The interior art is just plain operating on a level all of its own. So, yeah, I cannot recommend this book enough. Go check it out. Alright, Star Wars Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison is the runner-up. There's only one more book I picked up this week, and those of you who know what I pick up week to week, you'll know that this is going to be pick of the week. The reason this beat out Star Wars, the reason this beat out Saga, is that this was the perfect comic book. There is not one thing about this book that I didn't love to pieces, and that was Daredevil, issue number 15. So, at the end of the last issue, Daredevil's senses have been taken from him. not just his 5 senses, but his 6th sense as well. And he's stuck in Latveria, and he doesn't know if he's escaped, he doesn't know what's going on. And there are some great moments in the beginning of this book where, you know, things are being done to him, and, you know, he's being held down, and he'll be like, well, why are my arms so heavy? Like, what's going on? You know, because his senses really, truly are gone. And so what he does sort of feel, because he starts sort of getting some senses back over time, is really, you know, they're very confused and they're very unclear. And it's interesting to see how Mark Waid interprets what would happen to you if all of these other senses were gone and you only had little pieces of senses here and there kind of coming into play. That was fun, really smartly written on Mark Waid's part. We have a really interesting development around Daredevil's powers, and there's an element of, like, you know, maybe his powers haven't finished developing yet. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because that's just too juicy to spill. Go read the book and enjoy it for that. And then finally you get a great, you know, cavalry moment at the end, I guess, where, you know, it's like you hear the Hollywood theme song of, you know, of the good guys coming in to save the day kind of a moment at the end, and it's just absolutely a joy to read. This book is fantastic. I love Chris Samnee's art on this. I'm assuming he's on for the next few issues yet, but I don't know, because Daredevil has usually alternating artists. I don't know if he's the only one on this right now. I hope he is, because Rocketeer starts next month, and it'd be great to be getting 2 books by Chris Samnee at the same time. That would be a blast. So anyway, go check out Daredevil issue number 15 if you haven't. Go check out all of the issues prior to this one. This is just a fantastic series. So, this week, Pick of the Week goes to Daredevil, but it wasn't the only great issue. We also looked at Star Wars, Darth Vader and the Ghost Prison, Saga issue number 5, and Wonder Woman. Sadly, Batwoman and the Spider, a little disappointing. Earth 1, atrocious but free. And then for those of you who didn't pick it up last week, do like I did and pick it up this week. Punk Rock Jesus, amazing read. And that's all the comics I got for you. So, hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not sure how long it is. I was kind of trying to get through it kind of quick, so this wouldn't be too long of a video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. Hope you go pick up the books that I got and tell me what you thought of them down below. Subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Just a heads up. Be sure to tune in this weekend, because I will have a Dark Knight Rises review up. If you don't already know, I am going to the 3-movie event starting tomorrow at 6 p.m. I am totally stoked. So anyway, I will talk to y'all very soon. I'm Beardo. You just watched Minutia Minute. Have a great day.